Today I'm showing you how to build this epic all-in-one pyramid base in ARK Survival Ascended using the adobe structures so you can outlive the heat in the desert. It's a pretty big base, but it is official friendly. It's below the limit. There is some details that will bring it over, but in the tutorial I tell you exactly up to what point you should be totally fine, and you'll have about 1,000 structures left to worry about, decorating the inside of the pyramid and structuring it in a way that you see fit. There's a lot of room on the bottom layer for your breeders and keeping all your creatures inside and safe, even some of your bigger creatures, and of course a really spacious crafting and storage room so that you can easily store all that you gather on your ARK adventures. And of course more rooms upstairs for bedrooms should you wish it, and even the option to turn the top layer of the pyramid into a greenhouse so that you can grow your crops efficiently. Hello there survivors, and welcome back to another build video on my channel. As always, if you enjoy seeing videos like this and you want to continue to see more, make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds you'd like to see down in the comments below. Before we start today's tutorial, if you want a closer look at the base to determine if you like it or you want to build it for yourself, check out the full tour video that I already made on my channel so you can see what it's like. And should you be wondering where I built this, this is the original location where I built it, which is located right over here on the map on Astraeos. So before we start building this pyramid, it is of course most important to lay down the entire foundation, making sure that you have enough space to build this whole base. So you want to find a nice flat location and try to lay down these foundations edges to see if you can make it work. And if you want to be entirely sure, of course you also want to fill in everything inside of these lines so that you have the entire pyramid supported perfectly before we actually start the build. So you can see on the left and the right side, those are the big entrances where we have a 6 wide entrance in the middle, which are going to be our bigger gates to get into the dino pen area. And then on the top and the bottom we have a smaller 4 wide entrance, which is going to be the staircase up to the second layer where you'll find all of the crafting and storage capabilities of this base. So once you have this entire shape placed, what we want to do before we fill in the entirety of this base is you want to go over here. We want to place down a second layer of 6 long here. Then we want to take out some quarter foundations, add 2 over here, and add another 2 over here on the other side, so we can have 5 foundations perfectly centered on this side, which is very important for the entrance that we'll make. So we want to make sure that we have that on this side, and we want to make sure that we do the same thing over here. So first of all, another layer of foundations, 2 quarters here and 2 quarters on that side before filling this in and making sure that we have a centered entrance. This is so that we create a new snap point, because now if you take out your behemoth cellar doors and you change them to the barn doors, it should snap perfectly to the middle on top of those foundations, and that can be one of our entrances, and we can have the other here on the opposite side. These things snap the best to foundations, so that's why we want to make sure that we line those out before we fill in the entirety of the rest of the pyramid, which is the next step. So I'm not going to show you this because this is just a lot of foundations and a lot of boring work, but yeah, once you have this whole shape completed, we want to take out the rest of our foundations and start filling in everything so that we can start building up the entire pyramid base. So once we have all the foundations in place, we can also start by adding in some stairs right over here, because this will be one of the entrances to your base. We can do the same thing over here on this side, because that's another one of the entrances. And that means we can keep going around and add those stairs in, just so that you know exactly, well, should be pretty obvious, but keep it easy. And those are going to be the entrances. We're going to start with these bigger entrances first. We can use a large wall here to save on some structures. We want to place one right here and another one right over there, so that doesn't quite go all the way up, but it saves a few walls. We can add 2 more on top of them, and then have these going all the way across from one side to another. And of course it also means we can add in all quarter walls to fix those gaps. There we go, and that's basically how we're gonna make this entrance. And then what I personally did is use the steampunk skin on the gate to give it a bit more of that, well, treasure-like feel, and I think it still fits with the pyramid theme. Just makes it a little bit a nicer entrance. And then of course we can do the same thing over here on the opposite side. So once again we'll take out all large wall, one over there on that corner, another one over here, 2 more walls, and bringing this all the way across so that we have the same shape. And then of course taking out all quarter walls to fill in the remaining gaps here, just keeping this going all the way down. So there we go, then we have those entrances ready to go, but of course we'll need to work on the entire first layer. For these first layers, what we want to do is take out 2 walls and just keep going along the edges here so that we can basically build up these sides. We can go around the corners here and just keep this wall going all the way until we meet this corner here. Then we'll continue over here and keep these walls going across just like this all the way to the very end, and keep them going again until we meet up with the gate over here. So this is basically us starting to work up the first layer, and this will also help you of course, because once these walls are up, we're almost secure inside, and that will make it a little bit safer whilst you're building this, of course, depending on where you choose to build this. But yeah, we can keep going all the way across until we meet up with these entrances here, and then we can continue on over on the other side as well, keeping this first layer going just like this all the way across. And then again the same over here, bringing these walls all the way to the very end here. Alright, on these sides we want to first of all continue this staircase by 2 more before we do anything else. So we want to have a stairs like this, then we can have 1 layer of ceilings before we continue these stairs again. And this time we want to make sure that we go up by 4 in total, and of course also keep making these stairs 4 wide. And of course we can do the exact same thing here on the opposite side of the building. So again, raising them up by 2 first, then a platform of ceilings before continuing to go up by a total of 4, and of course keeping this 4 wide again. And here at the very top we want to start with a layer of ceilings. We can make them stick out a little bit further in total here. We can then take out a large wall to add here on the very end. So 1 here and another one over there. And we can add in a gateway right here. So this is going to be the entrance to the top bit. Of course, you want to add in an actual gate here so you can close it off when needed. And now you should also be able to fill in these sides a little bit to create a nice entrance. Then we can add in a layer of ceilings across the top here just to make sure that we have that filled in. We can also fill in these walls to the side just like that, and then we can have these go across the top. So that's going to be the entrance for the second layer, which is, for me at least, the crafting, the storage, etc. up there. Then we can actually also give a little bit more shape to the sides of the building. We want to flip around these roofs. We want to go up by 3 here. We can do the exact same thing over here, and then we can mirror what we've done with the stairs. So a ceiling over here on both sides, and then we can once again continue with these roofs until they meet up with these walls that we already have on the top. just like this. This will already help give a lot of shape to this build, of course. Then here on the inside of the stairs, we want to just make sure that we kind of fill in the sides here with our slope walls, just following along with the shape. Same here for the second part of these stairs. There we go. And we can do the exact same thing here on the opposite side, of course. And then finally, we have a full wall there and another full wall right there on that side. And then we can also fill in the sides here, so we can have walls going all the way up, filling in these little gaps, and then slope walls wherever needed. And then here on the other side, we can do the same thing, making sure that we blend in this entranceway. And this is the staircase that you'll take up to that entrance. And of course, we want to make sure that we repeat that entire process here. We already have the staircase. So first of all, we want to extend this layer with our ceilings. We can add in our gateway and our gate to get started with. Then, of course, we can take out all large walls and have one right over here on each of these corners. We can have walls right next to the entrance here, just like this. We can also have walls over here on the sides, just like that. Then we can have our ceilings here above the entrance, and we can be sure to continue these walls in between, just like so. And then of course we want to make sure that we add in these roofs. So once again, we'll flip the roofs around, add 3 over here, same 3 over there, and then from this top, of course, we can bring down the roofs as well, just over there. Same thing on this side. There we go. And then of course connecting them with a ceiling, making sure to be the right way around. And once we've done that, of course, it means we can start filling in these sides again. So we'll use our slope walls here on the inside along the staircase. Same thing over here, just following the entire shape. And then of course continuing that back all the way down here, and do the same thing on this side. And then finally a wall here, a wall there, and then we can fill in these last bits too, just to make sure that we have no gaps left for this part of the entrance, which will provide us with a safe way to get up to our crafting and storage. There we go. So we have 2 of the bigger entrances up there now ready. We have the side entrances not completed yet, so that's the next phase. We'll take a look again at these bigger entrances. We'll place a wall here at the very end at both of the sides. Then we'll take out the roofs, flip them around, and build up these roofs all the way into those walls. And we'll do that, of course, for both of them. We can take out our walls here and we can start building them up. We can do the same thing here over on the opposite side, just like this. And of course, on the outside, it's pretty much the same thing. So we want to build the same walls up just to give us a little bit nicer supports. And then, of course, taking out our large walls here for the very end, just to save on some structures. It's already a pretty big build, so especially on official, you'd want to save structures wherever you can. And then all we need to do is fill in these slope walls along the sides to make sure that we have those entrances covered. And it just kind of guides your view into the entrances of the pyramid. So that is this entrance ready. We'll do the exact same thing here over on the opposite side of the pyramid. So again, we'll start with these walls. We'll take out our roofs, flip them around, build them up to the main entrance. We'll do the exact same thing here on the opposite side. We can take out all large walls again here, and we can place them at the very end of these walls. We can then start to fill in the rest of these walls, just to make sure that we follow the shape. We can do the same thing over here. There we go. And then, of course, finally, we want to fill in the slope walls to follow the shape perfectly. Same here on the opposite side. And then once more over here. And there we go. We have both entrances, all 4 entrances actually, ready to go. Then before we continue here on the inside. We want to bring in this wall by 2, and then we can raise it up again. We can raise it actually up all the way to the same height as the actual entrance. And then after going up by 2, we want to do another square just like this, kind of to shape up the future walls and ceilings of this place. We'll do the same thing over here, so that same shape sticking out from the sides. We'll do again, repeating that process over here, just making sure that these poke in. This is kind of to give shape to the future levels that we'll be adding here on the outside of the pyramid, of course, just to make sure that everything connects nicely and blends in perfectly together. And then before we continue to go up with the pyramid, it's a good time to put in some pillars here at the very corner. We'll do this, of course, on all 4 corners of the pyramid, just to give it a little bit more shape. There we go. And then we can also bring out our beams, and we can bring them here along the sides of this layer, just to kind of shape it up a bit more and give it a little bit more distinction. Of course, if you're really short on structure limit, you could always leave these details out, but I think it's worth adding them just to give it a little bit more shape rather than just keeping the normal walls and ceilings. So for now, we'll just go around and make sure that we add them all the way along this first layer of the pyramid, so that we can start going up layer by layer to make, well, an actual pyramid out of this place. Of course, we've got the entrances in place, which of course is very important. And, well, it is kind of a closed off area right now, so you could at least temporarily live in here, kind of until you finish the whole shape. And now that we've done this, we can actually take out our ceilings. We want to start over here. We want to go 2 wide. And we'll go all the way around, except for where we meet the entrances, of course. Those bits we'll still want to leave opened. So here we're just going to do it until we meet this wall. That's kind of where we lay down those shapes already, because it makes an easy point to connect to and call it a day for that level. But of course, we'll have to do this for all 4 corners of the build. So for now, we can just lay down a bunch of these ceilings to make sure that we get that pyramid going. Again, here we're going to stop right where the kind of entrance is, and then we'll continue on the other side of it. And then we can just continue to fill it all in with those ceilings 2 wide to create this first layer, the first step of the pyramid. There we go, meeting up with this entrance, and then finally the 4th side here. We of course just gonna repeat the same process here. Just want to add in that first step of the pyramid all the way around until we meet this other entrance again. And then next up, we can actually add in our pillars again. So every time on one of these corners, we want to make sure that we add in a pillar again, 2 high, just as we did before. And then once we've done that, we can actually start going up by 2 high walls again. So basically, we're going to instantly add another layer of the pyramid. When you meet into one of these entrances, you can also make sure to fill in that layer for now. And of course, we'll have to go all around the pyramid and making sure that we keep doing the same for all 4 corners. And with these bigger entrances, it should line up nicely with the shape we already prepared for this. There we go. So yeah, we just kind of want to continue and make sure that we add these 2 high walls all the way around us. And then of course at these entrances, we can already fill in a little bit of the wall again with our wall pieces. There we go, just like this. And keep bringing this all the way across, which will slowly but surely give more and more shape to our pyramid base. And Make sure that it actually starts to look a little bit more like a proper pyramid, of course. Just step by step we will get there. So yeah, we'll just continue these walls all the way over to the corner here, and of course continue them once more until we meet another entrance here. And then this one, of course, we can continue with walls once again. And then of course at these entrances we can also add in those slope walls so they meet up with the roofs above. We can also do that here on the opposite side, of course, just like this. We'll do the same thing over here. There we go. And then we can actually take out our beams and make sure that we add them here along the top of these walls that we've just created, just as we did for the first step, just to set it apart a little bit more and yeah, give it a little bit more shape. So once again, we want to make sure that we go all the way around the pyramid and add this for each of the 4 corners that we're working on. That's the easy part of the pyramid, of course. You have a lot of repetition for each of the 4 corners to make sure that each layer and each side looks perfectly and the same. So there we go. We'll add those all in, and that should have been all the way round. And then once more, we can bring out our ceilings here and add another layer that is too wide to each of these corners, which will prepare us the next step of the pyramid. Once again, it should line up perfectly here at these bigger entrances where we already prepared a little bit of the shape. So we can just build them until we get there and then continue them on the opposite side again to have our too wide path or walkway continue until we meet up with one of the other entrances, of course, and then we can also skip those and continue on the other side of them so that we can fill in all of the 4 corners of the pyramid, and slowly but surely getting a little bit height in there for our build. We can of course continue again on the opposite side of this entrance, and there we go, filling in another corner of the pyramid all the way up until we meet up here with another one of the entrances. And by now you probably can guess what the next step is. We're going to add another 2 pillars on each of these corners, because we're going to add one more layer before we're going to have some different work to do again. So we want to start working on another step here for the pyramid, and of course then we can take out our walls again and meet them up with the different entrances. Now you will see that we'll start to fill in most of those sides of those higher entrances up to the next layer, and this one also should meet up perfectly with the top layer here of these walls. So that's how you can measure if you're still doing everything all right. And of course we want to keep doing this for all 4 corners of the pyramid to make sure that they're all looking as intended. So we'll fill in these sides along the entrance too, just like that. And then over here we can continue to build up these walls too high around every corner. There we go. And just keep it all the way until we'll meet up with this entrance. And again, this should line up perfectly if we've done our work right. And we can go all the way to another corner and go all the way around it once again until we meet up with another one of these entrances and fill in the gaps. Add in the slope walls where needed to kind of go with the shape. And of course that also means we can do this on the opposite side, which then also should kind of finish up these entrances here. And then we can take out our beams again and make sure that we add them here along the side of the build. Now here at this side, of course, we have something special, but we also just want to make sure that we go around those edges with our beams. So we'll follow the entire shape for those bigger side entrances, and then over here with these entrances it should just meet up with the wall, and then we can continue on the other side again. Oh, oops. And we can just keep this going until we've done it for all 4 corners. Again, here with the big entrance, we want to just kind of follow the top of these walls all the way round. And then the final little bit of details around this corner. And there we go. We should have done all the way around the build. Now we're actually going to start here at one of these gates. So counting from this gate, we're going to add 7 ceilings. So that's 3, that's another 3, and that is 7 in total. We want to make sure that we have a 4 wide line here, so just like this, and then we'll add a corner here and a corner there. So that is the shape that we'll need. For now, we'll make this 2 wide because it's a little bit easier to kind of connect. So we have these 4 ceilings. We'll leave that open because we're going to have like a gap here so that you could move up and down with your flyers whenever necessary, which means we can go around here. We want to make sure that this is another side of 4 before we go in again, and then we can do that once more over here on this side and keep this going all the way round. So basically we want to have this shape with these 4 ceilings on each side of the building, and if we've done everything correctly, of course, this should line up again. So we should need another 6 in total before we reach it, because the 7th we of course already placed down, and that's kind of the shape that we need. And now that we've done that, we can actually start filling in the rest of this shape with our ceilings, because we're just leaving that middle open, of course, but all of the rest of this we want to fill in for the next layer of the pyramid. Not just the next step for the pyramid, but also the internal layer where you can have a big part of your base. And you'll see down below there's plenty of space for a bunch of creatures and tames, so you can do some proper breeding and not have to worry about your creatures not being safe in here. So yeah, we'll just start filling this all in because we've already made the shape in the middle, so we don't really need to worry about, you know, making the wrong move or not actually filling in the shape as intended. Here above the big entrances, we can also just fill it all in all the way to the very end. And then of course we just want to make sure that we keep this all going all the way around, and just make sure that we fill in this layer properly. And there we go. So it is quite a lot of ceilings, of course, because we're building a whole nother layer. We have gone in a little bit from the bottom foundation, but it's still a rather large shape that we're working with, which of course in the long run only means that you'll have plenty of space to work with inside of this pyramid, because as you can see, well, there's definitely still a lot more room to go before we have a pyramid looking building. So yeah, we just want to fill this all in, keep this all going, and continue to fill it in over here on this side too. So we're just adding in all of these ceilings. Of course, we're keeping the middle open with the shape we've made, but all of these other sides we can keep filling in with our ceilings, and that should give us a lot of space again to work with. But it also should mean that we mostly secure the bottom layer, so that if you're already using the base whilst you're working on finishing it, it will be a lot easier to keep your stuff safe in here. There we go. We can just keep going all the way along, making sure that we add in all of these ceilings, and we're almost there. We're definitely getting there. It is of course a big task. It is a rather big build, of course, but that just means that you'll have a lot of space to work with for whatever you're planning. There we go, the final stretch over here, and then we have the entirety of this layer ready to go. So there we go, we kind of have the bottom part of the pyramid looking ready. And just to prepare the future layers, we want to start above one of these big entrances, basically where we have these jut outs on the pyramid level. We want to start here right from the corner, and we can add 4 stairs right there. We can do the same thing here in the other corner. Then we can have a wall here and a wall over there, and then in the middle we can add another staircase, which is actually going up by 3. So this is kind of to prepare us for the stairs up to the next layer. We can do the exact same thing here over on the opposite side. So again, we want to have these go up by 2, 4 stairs in total. We'll have all walls here in between, and then walls going up by 3 over here. We can also add in our pillars, and we want to make sure that we go in by 2 from the corner. So basically the same step as we've had so far, and of course we want to make sure that we make that too high. We can do the same thing over here, and then on the opposite side again the same, going in by 2 from each corner. The same over there. Well, the next step, of course, so we can start filling this in all the way, and we want to end right here where we have this entrance. And then of course around the corner here we can continue this wall to be too high again, which should meet up kind of with these stairs. And here on the inside we actually just want to keep this wall going all the way across. So we're kind of just gonna keep this all the way until we hit the corner here. Then of course we're gonna turn, let's not misplace any, and keep this wall going again. Here we're gonna leave it open for now, because we're gonna work on the entrance a little bit later, but that does mean that we can continue from here and continue all the way up to the corner, of course, and add the wall for the next step all the way across this side too. So yeah, basically we're still continuing these steps of the pyramid that are too high each time. There we go. We can continue this wall all the way here up to the corner of this entrance. To work on this entrance, actually, we need the large walls. We can add a large wall here and right next to it, which should line up with the same height of the rest of the entrance. And we can do the same thing, of course, over here. We can do the same thing on the opposite side of the building. And once more right over here. There we go. And now that we've done that, of course, we can take out our beams and go across the top of these walls here. We can stop right here when we meet the staircase, and we can return to it after we've passed all of the stairs. Keep going until the entrance. And of course, repeat this process for all of the different corners and sides of the builds. There we go. And keep this beam going all the way across. And then actually next to these bigger entrances, we want to remove the last 2 beams. We don't need those quite in these places, so we'll do that for all of these sides. And then we can add a wall here in the corner with 2 slope walls right next to it, just like that. And of course the same thing here on the opposite side of the building, just so that we meet up with the top line of the wall for these entrances. Then it's also time to start the next step of the pyramid again. So again, we're going to go with these 2 wide walkways. We want to actually go all the way on the inside here until we meet the entrance. So again, next to those places that we just added. And of course, we need this for all 4 corners of the pyramid. The good thing, of course, is that these corners are slowly getting smaller. And we actually want to make sure that we continue these all the way also on top of these stairs, of course. This is where they connect. And we can make sure that you can walk around on these different layers. So again, here, we're going to fill it in all the way. And continue again on the opposite side, so that we can go around the corner again. And of course meet up here in these stairs so that you can reach all the different layers. And then before we continue to build up the other layers, we're going to focus a little bit here on the inside. First of all, around these, the big hole basically in the middle, we can of course add in some railings so that you don't fall down whilst you're working in your crafting area. You could also remove the hole, of course, if you'd want to, or maybe add a hatch frame instead. But it's just a nice way to be able to move quickly between the layers of your build using flyers or a tech suit or, you know, something like that. Then we want to pick a main entrance. So let's say this is the main entrance. That means that we're going to add the staircase to go up to the other layers over here on this side. What we want to do is, first of all, take out some large walls again and add 2 more right over here, and we can do the exact same thing over on the other side here just to give a little bit more shape. Then what we want to do is add our stairs. We can add 2 going up just like this, and then another, well, 4 technically to go up here, but 2 high at least. Then what we also want to do is add in a pillar on the corner just to kind of signal that is going to be another step there for the pyramid, of course. We can continue these ceilings a little bit until they stick out like this. So again, a 2 wide one, but we also want to add 1 more layer there. So we can do the same thing over here on this side, go up by 2, and then add these extra 2 here. And then of course we can add in some more stairs to go up to the next layer. So we'll do the same thing just over here. And once we've done that, of course, we can make sure to add in some railings here along the sides, just like this, so that we know that you can safely go up and down these stairs. So we can then do some railings over here as well. You can do many things. What I like to do is just kind of add a extra temporary wall here, or not temporary, but a extra supportive wall there. You could make that go a little bit further if you wanted to, but it just looks a little bit nicer in my opinion than having railings there. And it just means that you have a nice little corner to place something down in. And of course also means we can do the same thing over here, making sure that we add in our railings along the side just like so, so that we have a nice and supported staircase over on that side of the building to reach the upper layers from inside of our pyramid. Then we want to take out our ceilings, add 2 of them here at the end of the staircases that we already built before. So we want to do that again. And then we can actually have a gateway at the very top of those. So over here again. And if you want to be able to close off the top of the pyramid, or actually access to your pyramid, of course you'd want to add a gate in there so that, yeah, if you don't want anyone coming into your base, you can always close it. But there we go. That is some extra entrances here to the base. And then here at the next layer, we want to make sure that we add another layer of stairs so that they reach the right height again. There we go. And then we can start adding in some extra walls. So right over here, we want to have a wall, of course, meeting up with the pillar there. If you want it looking a little bit nicer or more cohesive, what you could, of course, do is make sure that these walls are facing the same way. Might be a little bit nicer to look at rather than it being like the opposite way around. So we'll do that for both of those corners. And of course, we can fill in the walls up to the pillar there. And then we can bring these across a little bit as well. We want to leave this gap open because we're going to still have some supports next to those stairs over here. And we can, of course, do the same thing here on the opposite side, filling in these pieces just like this. And then over at the opposite side of the pyramid, we don't have any stairs, of course, but we can still add in these corners, and then we can also start adding in the next layer of the build. So for now, that just means bringing up these walls by 2, continuing, of course, around the corner all the way up here, leave a gap next to the staircase, and we can just fill this all in. There we go. And then here on the inside, just to make it all look a little bit nicer, what you could do is also add some large walls here, just to make that entrance a little bit bigger, but also hide those gaps up there. And then finally here along the outside, of course, it means that we can fill in these corners next to the entrances with some staircases. This is just so that you can also walk up the pyramid on the outside from some of these different layers that we've made. And of course, we want to make sure that we can do that on both sides of the pyramid. So everywhere we want to add in these additional staircases. There we go. Just like this. And then over here for these staircases that we already had, we of course just want to make sure that we fill in these sides like this. And we can do that for each and every one of them, of course, so that we have those supported. We can continue to do that over here. And then one more over on the opposite side here. There we go. And now that means we can, of course, add in the next layer. Again, it's going to be too wide. We can build it all the way up here. And then at these stairs, we just want to make sure that this links up before we continue it over on the opposite side. And of course, we can go around the corner here. We can go all the way across to the opposite side, of course, but we can also fill in the top here of the entrance so that you have a little bit more space on some of the sides of the building. And then we can just continue filling in the next step of the pyramid all the way, meet up with these stairs, and continue all the way on the other side again. There we go. We can go all the way across over here to the very end, and then of course fill in these bits above the side entrances. There we go. Making sure that we enter these all. And then before we continue, we of course want to make sure that we also add the beams here at the top of the walls that we've placed, so we can go around all of the sides, all of the different corners of the build, and making sure that we add those in all around it. There we go. And as you can see, it's getting smaller and smaller up here, so we're getting closer and closer to finishing this pyramid. We can also add in these beams in the front here, in above the entrances that we've already built. So we just want to make sure that we add that bit of detail over here too. And now we've done all that, we can actually start filling in this floor a little bit more. First of all, connecting these staircases with each other, and then we can bring this all the way across to build up another layer of the pyramid. So yeah, basically we can fill this all in, except of course above these staircases. That's where we want to keep a little bit of extra space, just because that feels a bit nicer. But the rest of this we can all fill in and give another layer to this already pretty big base and this pretty big pyramid, of course. But there we go. We have another layer ready for us to work with. First of all, what we want to do is add some of these pillars again in the corner. So it's going to be a 2-high pillar there going in 2 from the corner. We're going to do the same thing over here. Quite easy because it lines up with the staircase. But over here, we're doing the same thing. Basically just preparing another layer of this pyramid, of course. Then first of all, we want to add in the walls over here to make them 2 high, just next to these entrances. There we go. We can do the exact same thing here on the opposite side. And it also means we can fill in part of this corner already, meeting up just where we have these entrances, so that you can still, well, either leave the building from there or enter the building from here. There we go, just like this. And then here on the inside, just to make it a little bit smoother, what I would do is add some extra ceilings right next to these entrances. So we'll do the same thing over here, just so that we can make this all a little bit easier by filling in these walls again. And then here on the very side of it, we just want to have a slope wall just like that, so that we can fill in those gaps. So we can do the same thing over here. Slope wall, another slope wall, and then over here we just want to have that wall continue a little bit further. Oh, and I just noticed that we forgot to do this side. So again, we'll build up these walls because we'll need that to finish the rest of this little entrance over here. What we want to do is we want to bring out some ceilings. We want to add 2 here and 2 there, just next to this entrance. Take out our stairs, flip them around, or our roofs, I mean, and then they should line up with that little wall that we placed a while ago to make a nice support for this entrance. We can do the same thing over here. So 2 ceilings here, 2 ceilings there, and then just have these upside down roofs meet up with that wall that we placed down earlier. There we go. That also means that we can just add in these walls here on the sides. We can also be sure to add them in here. So full wall there, full wall here. And then it's best to start with some of the slope walls to fill in the gaps here along the side. And then over here, we can just add in another full wall here on the inside. You kind of just can fill in the pattern here, fill in the slope wall. And then finally, there's just one more full wall that we need to add. So full wall here, slope wall there. And then we can just have these slope walls continue down to the front here. Can do the same here. Actually, that's a little bit cleaner. And then here on the outside, of course, we just want to have our slope walls first. And then we can add in our full walls over at the side. And of course, here at the final layer. And that gives us a very nice entrance here to that top layer, which should also look nice from the inside because we already had most of these walls filled in. All that we need to do, or what you probably want to do, is add in a few of these extra walls just to clean this up a little bit. So we can do the same thing here on the opposite side, of course. We'll start with these now, we're inside anyway. There we go. And then we can also work here on the outside, basically repeating the same process. So we want to add in these slope walls to the side. The same here in the front. Oops, we don't need that part. There we go. And fill in this all the way. Few more here. And then of course, once you've done that, we can fill in the final gaps with our full walls. There we go. And then just a few more here. And we have another entrance looking very nice. And we only need to focus on the very top here of the pyramid. Those walls that were poking out on the outside, that was because of something we did here. So we want to just fill these in with our slope walls instead, so that the inside also looks equally nice. And then finally, above these entrances, we want to add in a little bit of a roof. So we want to add these roof pieces like so on both sides of the building. Then we can add in some slope walls over here. And then finally, some roof corners here on the front to give it a little bit more shape. We can do the same thing, of course, here on the opposite side of the building. And that finishes up those entrances that we can now use to get to the top layer here. Then what we want to do is we want to start filling in these walls, but we're not going to go all the way from one side to another. We actually want to leave the middle 2, or the middle 2x2 open. So we want to have this open just like this, and we can actually place down another wall over here on both sides. We're going to do the exact same thing over here on this side of the building. Continue this except for the middle part, just like so. And then of course we can do those same walls here, add in the slope walls as well to make a staircase up to the top layer. We're doing that here as well, of course, adding in our stairs so that you can reach that top layer. And of course it also means we do these stairs on this side of the building. Then we should be able to take out our beams, add them in here along the top of these walls. all the way round us. There we go. As for the inside of this room, you can keep it a big room. You can park some flies up here. What I did is I made some smaller rooms so I could have some bedrooms here, but that's totally optional. That's up to what you prefer to use this space for. For the top layer, of course, we want to start filling this all in, and we can actually fill it in all the way through for this final layer. So once again, we can just go around with our ceilings and just fill in the entirety of this top layer of the pyramid. So there we go, just the final ceilings here to create the top layer. We still have a decent amount of space, and there's a few options for the top, of course. You could either just go for a nice finish on the pyramid, or you could even decide to add like a functional greenhouse and build the very top of the pyramid out of greenhouse glass instead, so that you could efficiently grow some plants on the top. So anyway, what I'm going to do is add a pillar there, and then every 2, we're going to add another pillar in. There we go. We're going to do this all the way around the top layer. But as I said, there's 2 options here. You could just kind of leave this as a adobe building and build the top of the pyramid as I'm going to show you. But you could also fill this all in with greenhouse walls all the way around, and of course some doors near the stairs here, and then build the top of the pyramid out of greenhouse glass so that you could get a bit of a greenhouse going here at the top of your pyramid if you wanted to. But I'm just going to go for a nice top here. So what we're going to do is take out our roofs. We want to snap like this, and almost all the way to the corner, just to go around the first part of the build. And then we're going to see if we can get the right snap point and add in some more of these roofs. So we just want to miss out on the actual corners of the building, and we're going to do that for all 4 sides, of course. And then we want to go in by 1 each layer that we go up to build the remaining part of this pyramid. There we go. And we can do this, of course, for all of the sides so that we slowly build up the very end and the very top of our beautiful build. There we go. We'll fill in these corners all the way to the very top. And we can keep them going, of course, for all different sides. And then we're almost getting ready to, well, finish the basic pyramid, which should fit within the official limit as well. There we go. We can fit in these final corners just like this. So that is how you build the basic shape and the basic pyramid. All that we need to do is here on the inside where we have the staircases come up. Of course, we want to make sure that we add in some more railings. We want to do that all the way across. And again, you could use this room for many purposes. But as you can see, if I press this button, we still have over 1,000 structures left if you were to try and build this on official. Now, on official, I would probably recommend using those extra structures for decorating your build, maybe adding some different rooms, etc. on the inside, or platforms for your breeders, all your utilities and storage, etc. Of course, I would do that first before you decide to do anything else, just so that you have enough room basically to use this base as you see fit. There is, of course, some additional details that we can add to the pyramid to make it look even nicer, which is what I will showcase you next. But I just wanted to clarify this. This is the point up to where you should have no issues whatsoever if you're building on official, and you should be able to use this pyramid as you want, and you should have a decent amount of structures left to basically organize the inside of the pyramid in a way that you see fit, adding in some details on the inside here, adding some different layers maybe around the sides here for different breeding projects, kind of the things that I did in my finished pyramid. But yeah, you should have a plenty of structure limit available to you still. An example of what you could do as added details is add pillars here, then a gap of 2, a gap of 2, and then just kind of continue like this, and of course then all the way around. And you can already see that this looks quite nice, but if you add a few of these shallow slope walls, I think this is a great way to add a little bit of detail here around the outside. You can do that all the way around to kind of create some nice walkways that you could use as part of your base. Again, just showcasing this on one side because I don't think I need to do this everywhere. And I also leave that out of the material list because all of these details are optional, but that's one of the ways that I added some decoration on the inside. Now, the major decorations, of course, is things that you can add here on the outside. Before we show you how to build things, let's go over to the actual pyramid. So over here we have the actual pyramid, and a few details that we have is the free cosmetic Egypt decor, I think it's called. You can add a few decor boxes, turn them into statues like this, or get these cool looking statues as well to decorate your pyramid base a bit more, which you can just see adds a lot of detail to it. And if you're wondering about the big eagle statue here, this is actually from the Astraeos custom cosmetic, another free cosmetic, and it goes onto a tech replicator, but it's a really cool addition. But you can also see that I added some extra shelves here. Basically what I did, I added a layer of quarter walls and then beams and pillars around it, as well as some extra ceilings, skinned those with cozy cabins to grass, and added some greenery to my pyramid to add some details. Now, this is of course only a cosmetic change, doesn't really add any functionality to your base, so probably not something I would recommend on official, because you're very likely to hit the limit because of all of these quarter pieces that it uses. But for the inside, I do want to show you what I've been up to, what I've added. So what I just showed you was these little slope walls as extra details is a way to just kind of make it look a little bit nicer on the inside, give it a little bit more shape and structure. And a similar thing is what I did here down below in the breeding pen, basically adding some of these supports, creating some shelves along the side, as you can see, so I can have a bunch of extra creatures neatly lined up. But if you're really into breeding, you probably have some systems of your own or some decorations or structures of your own that you want to use, and that's why you want to keep a little bit of that limit left over so you can decorate or organize to your heart's content. But that's how I did it for the inside. And then one additional change, of course, what I have here is very basic. I basically just build some of these small rooms here, which I turned into bedrooms. So nothing special, but yeah, this layer that's almost at the very top, you can add some bedrooms if you want to. I'll show you how to build one of these shelves. You can add them on every layer. Of course, if you build them at the bottom layer, it just gets longer, basically. That's all that changes. But yeah, again, for official, I wouldn't add those because you will hit the structure limit very quickly. And I would focus on adding all the things that you need inside of your base rather than just making the outside look good. Because if the outside looks good, but you can't have anything in the inside anymore, it's not very useful as a base after all. So yeah, so let's go back here to the pyramid that we built for the tutorial. Again, those little greenery additions are very nice. I wouldn't recommend them for official settings though. What we want to do is have a half pillar, place it right over here, and that goes for each layer, of course. Wherever you're building it, you build it right from that middle point, basically in between the ceilings, and you go from the wall to the other wall. In some cases, as this layer where the stairs is, this is the only layer where I wouldn't add those details. All of the other layers, you can go from wall to wall, wall to wall, wall to wall. The principle is the same thing every time. We're just going to do it up here because it's a little bit less work, because it is a lot of quarter walls involved. So what we want to do is from that pillar all the way up to where you meet the wall, you can place them down, and we can do the same thing here over on this side. Then we can add in our ceilings, fill in this layer completely. So of course, if you're lower down, you'll have a lot longer road to fill in, but again, the idea is exactly the same. And then we want to add some beams around the edge just to make it stand out a little bit more. In my case, I've used cozy cabins, but Deluxe Dreamhouse also has some nice grass textures, and that's what I've used to create these flower beds. And then I play on my own servers, so I can add my own mods. I use JV8's landscaping a lot to add the plants. Of course, you can also use a shovel and a plant pot and just use the Bob Talltales DLC in the game to collect some plants, place them down on these little gardens that we've added. Or you could, of course, use some custom cosmetics. I think the Botanist catalog is a really good option for that as well. There's plenty of ways to add a little bit of splash of green onto your pyramid, which just breaks up those sandy colors a little bit. Because, of course, this is a lot of adobe sandstone-y looking structures for one big build. But yeah, basically, that's the idea. You add that to each step if you want to add a bunch of this greenery as decor for your base. But again, very much optional. This is the idea of how to build the pyramid, and then you can make it your own for whatever purpose you see fit on the inside. So there we go. That is the full step-by-step build tutorial on how to build this epic pyramid. If you're looking for a cool desert base with plenty of space, this should serve you pretty well. Hopefully you enjoyed another build video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave your suggestions for future builds you'd like to see down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video or the next stream. For now, goodbye.